A very good morning from the Oatridge campus of Scotland's Rural College, and a warm welcome to this live event to showcase our equine studies and horse care courses. Forgive me, there was a word in there that shouldn't have been there. And thank you all for joining us today. My name's Graham West and I'm the Marketing and Student Recruitment Officer here on the Oatridge campus. The format for today will be as follows, but first just a couple of quick housekeeping notes. We can't hear you, but hopefully you can hear us. And please do use the Q&A bar on the right-hand side to ask any questions, which we'll address after the presentations. There is a short delay between us talking and you hearing, so please bear that in mind. And note also the event is being recorded, and I'll share a link within the next 24 hours to allow you to view it at a later date and to ask any further questions that it might bring up for you. I'll shortly introduce my colleague Gillian Turnbull, who's one of our equine lecturing team for this suite of courses, and Gillian will take us through a presentation on the various courses available, which I hope will give you a flavour of how the academic team aim to provide the highest quality of structured learning from our campus here at Oatridge. Our teaching teams on campus are always adapting and developing new ways to deliver quality learning for our students, using a blended approach which, depending on the subject, will combine online, classroom and practical work. Following the presentation, we'll then be happy to review and address any questions you may have. So again, please do use the Q&A bar. So without further ado, I will introduce Gillian and she'll be able to take you through her presentation. There you go, you're live, Gillian.
Okay, so yeah, I'm Gillian Turnbull. I'm the course tutor for the HND on the Oatridge campus, and I teach on the HND courses and on the degree course, but I have taught across a range of subjects from NC level right through to degree level, so I'm familiar with what's in all of the courses that we offer. We'll do the presentation first. I'll then go through the video, and then there'll be the opportunity for questions, and hopefully I'll be able to answer any of them that come up at the end. But if you pop any questions into the chat, that will give us a chance to filter those through. So my presentation is on both equine studies at HN level and the horse care courses at further education level. So we offer 6 levels of course on a full-time basis. The further education courses are practical with some theory, and they run across 3.5 days. So the national certificate's 3.5 days, the national certificate with racehorse care is 3.5 days, and the advanced certificate is 3.5 days. So these are our further education courses that are mainly practical with some theory. Our higher education courses are theory with some practical, and they run across 3 days. HNC across 3 days, HND, and the BSc honours course 3 days over 5, although we do try to keep that over a 3-day window so that it allows for the opportunity for students to go home or to work outside of their college time. Passing your course allows you to apply for the next level of course. It doesn't automatically guarantee that you're placed on that course, but if you have passed your course, you have attended well, and you have been a good all-round student, then there is no reason you shouldn't be able to enter at a low-level course and then carry on through from FE to HE. But we do have students that enter at FE level and leave at FE level, and we do have students that enter at HE level and they are there for a shorter time and leave with an HE qualification. So our timetables for national certificate through to HND level are split into what we call blocks. So there are 3 10-week blocks, and that equates to 30 hours of teaching over the course of the year from September through until May. The degree course, year 3 and year 4, is built across semesters, and we have 2 15-week semesters. So the teaching for that is also 30 weeks, but it's 2 15-week semesters rather than 3 10-week blocks. The timetables are built across the days that the students are on campus from 9 until 12 and 1 until 4. If you're attending a national certificate or national certificate with racehorse care, then you would be involved in basic horse care subjects. So for example, watering and feeding would be one of them, and you would ride a couple of times per week. There's usually the opportunity for extra riding, but we timetable riding twice a week on the NC course. The advanced certificate course is slightly more advanced horse care subjects. So if a student was entering with slightly higher academic qualifications and potentially more experience, then they would do slightly more advanced horse care subjects. And those might include tacking up for competition, for example. So national certificate would be tacking up, and then a slightly more advanced would be tacking up for competition at advanced certificate level. And they also ride twice a week in their timetable with the opportunity for extra riding. The higher national certificate courses, so moving on to HE rather than FE, they have equine science subjects, for example, anatomy and physiology being one of them, and they ride once a week, again with the opportunity for extra for students who are keen. And then the HND subjects are a combination of equine science and also business management subjects. So equine science would include broodmare, and business management would be, for example, managing an equine business. So it is business management, but related to managing an equine business rather than general business management. And the riding for that is once a week on the timetable, but more often than not, students will be riding twice or 3 times a week on the HND course. Because of the way the timetables work just now, there's actually 2 riding sessions included on the HND course at the moment, and again, opportunity for riding out with their timetable days on campus. And the BSc includes more advanced equine science and management subjects and riding and non-riding options, and I'll talk a little bit later about the content of the BSc when we get to that stage in the presentation. We currently have an on-campus, off-campus week system. So as the courses move up, they tend to be more emphasis on independent learning, so that would be off-campus. So the national certificate and advanced certificate students spend most of their time on campus with the occasional off-campus week. At HND and BSc level, there are 2 weeks on campus and 2 weeks off campus. So you still have classes in those off campus weeks, but they are delivered on an online basis. So the FE courses entry criteria would be for the national certificate and NC racehorse care. That's a 1-year course. You would need to have 3 Nat 4s, and we prefer those to be in English and in maths. But other useful subjects that might be good for you to consider if you've not already made your school choices would be IT and biology. So you would send in your application. What we also need in addition to that application and evidence of your academic qualifications is evidence of 2 weeks practical work experience, and riding evidence, which would be assessed via video footage on a YouTube video, for example, would be evidence of you being able to walk, trot and canter and ride over poles on the ground or a small fence. So it's fairly basic in terms of the requirement for riding. The national 4s are your entry level in terms of academia, and 2 weeks practical work experience. The advanced certificate, you need to have 2 Nat 4s and 2 Nat 5s. So that's just preparing you for a slightly higher academic level when you come onto campus. Again, preference would be for those to include English and maths. And again, IT and biology would certainly be useful. Biology, for example, will help you with anatomy and physiology elements of the course. And IT is just good for you to be able to have a basic IT knowledge for preparation of assignments and assessments. 2 weeks practical work experience is also required, and riding ability, again, this time walk, trot, canter, but it's riding over small fences rather than just a single fence. And we do look at those again by video footage on a YouTube clip. For those courses at FE level, you would apply directly to Oatridge, to SRUC, depending on which campus you're going to, but it's an application to the college rather than to UCAS, which is for the HE courses. So the racehorse care in particular, the content of that is specifically geared towards providing students with NPAs or National Progression Awards in addition to the basic NC qualification. So it's an introductory qualification for anyone who is keen to pursue a career in the racing industry. There is the opportunity that if you started on that course and decided that racing really wasn't for you, that you could then move on to you could progress on to the advanced certificate having passed the Horse Care course. And similarly, there could be students who start on the national certificate, feel that they might want to develop their area of expertise as in the racing industry, and then can move sideways. So there's plenty of opportunity as long as it's identified early enough to move sideways from one to the other if you decide that you've applied for the wrong level of national certificate course. It's aimed at developing skills required to work in the racing and breeding aspect of the thoroughbred industry, but it also develops your personal, interpersonal and workplace skills to ensure that at the end of the course you are employable. It's not a career that will make you into a jockey. You would be introduced to the racing industry, and that's not to say that if you started on that course it might then lead on to you becoming a jockey in the future, but it isn't a course that prepares you to be a jockey at the end of the course. So it's still possible to pursue a career out with the thoroughbred industry after the course. So you could leave the course with your national certificate in racehorse care. That tells a potential employer that you are educated to that level, but you could still apply to a non-thoroughbred industry job after that. The modules on that include assisting with racehorse care, whereas the NC would be not related to the care of the racehorse. Safe handling of thoroughbreds. There's a safe handling unit on the NC, but it's not thoroughbreds. Preparation of ridden work. It's different tacking up a racehorse to tacking up a horse for everyday riding. Escorting racehorses to race meetings, and horse rehabilitation and therapy. So there's some examples of the units that are on that NC racehorse care course. So moving on to the HE courses, entry criteria for those. HNC is a one-year course which requires 2 hires or 1 A level at C grade or above. We prefer that to be English and a science subject. Again, you need to have your 2 weeks practical work experience, and the riding ability would be fairly similar to that on advanced certificate, but the requirement is for a higher level of academic qualification. If you held your BHS stage 1 or your Pony Club B tests in advance of applying, that would be an advantage, but it certainly is not a prerequisite for your application to the course. I'll chat a bit later about British Horse Society exams that run alongside our full-time courses, but that if you had a BHS stage 1 or your stage 2 in advance, that would certainly be an advantage and something that you could work for in the interim. The HND is 1 year on top of the HNC, so you would pass the HNC and apply straight to move on to the HND, or you could apply to come on to the HND first off, which means that you are there for 2 years. The HNC and the first year of the HND are the same, and you move on then to 1 year, which does require you to pass the HNC units first before you progress to the second year. The degree course, we have some students coming in straight off from school with 2 Bs and 2 Cs at high level. We also have students on the 3rd, 4th year of the degree level who have passed their HNC, they have passed their 2nd year of their HND, and they have progressed that way. So there is the opportunity for progression for anyone who is considering whether to stay on at school, to do extra hires, or to get the level they need. They could come onto the course at HNC level and progress that way, or HND level and progress that way, or come straight in from school at the end of 5th year or 6th year with 2 hires at 2 Bs and 2 Cs. And the application for those HE courses is through UCAS. The units on the BSc Honours Equine Science and Management programme are really interesting and basically carry on in more detail to what has been studied at HNC and HND level. The degree we are proud of being the only equine science degree in Scotland, and it was developed by SRUC staff across the central faculty in conjunction with the University of Glasgow. And it's a combination of science and business management subjects. And as I said previously, the HNC is the same as the first year of the degree. The HND second year is the same as year 2 of the degree, and some students progress through the HNC and HND, some come straight in from school. So we have units on the national certificate, the advanced certificate, and on the HNC and HND. When you get to year 3 and year 4, they become modules. So year 3 modules include research skills and data analysis, which will help you when it comes to 4th year with your dissertation for anything that you decide that you would like to study. Advanced equine nutrition, which is studied all the way through. It's included on HNC, it's not studied on HND, and then it's brought in at a higher level on the degree course. Behaviour and welfare, studied on HND, and it's taken to a higher level. Breeding management is also in the HND. Equine exercise physiology is a new unit, or a new module, sorry, that's introduced on the degree course, which isn't studied earlier on. Equitation science and international equestrian industry are both new, and equine health and disease is studied at a lower level on HNC and then carried on through into the degree at a higher level. And then the year 4 modules: equine welfare and ethics, rehabilitation and therapy, horse and rider performance, business innovation, and equine science in a changing world. And of those units, there is equine business on the HND course, but all of the other modules are fairly new and introduce completely new topics. I should say, from those photographs, we don't have an equine swimming pool, and we don't have a horse exerciser that exercises racehorses in vast numbers, but those are just some of the examples of the types of things that you might study or you might see on visits when you're on the degree course. So we're asked a lot about equestrian industry job opportunities when we when students finish the course. The list is endless. There are a huge number of opportunities in the general equestrian industry and also in the thoroughbred or the bloodstock industry in terms of students who want to continue their career in racing. Grooms and riders, fairly self-explanatory. Coaches, someone might want to go into equestrian education and become a lecturer. Yard manager, so your everyday riding school, livery yard, welfare centres and studs. You might develop a particular area in nutrition and want to go on and work for a nutrition company. Therapists, so you might want to work in rehab. Equestrian retail and marketing, students that maybe are interested in the business unit that then want to start up their own equine retail business. Saddle fitters, receptionists and customer care, so anyone who's particularly interested in the customer care element of the business unit might go on and decide that that's an area they're interested in. Farriery, although that's not part of the equine course, there is the opportunity to do an introduction to farriery course at SRUC, which then could lead into a farriery apprenticeship. And other skills that you might learn are transferable. So even if you decided that you didn't want to continue with a career in the equestrian industry, some people decide that horses are not for them, the skills that are learned on our courses are transferable into other areas. So you can always say that you are educated to HNC level or HND level or degree level, albeit that you might not necessarily get a career in that industry. And racing industry in particular, work riders, head girls or head lads. Travelling lads or lass, that basically means that you're going to the races, so you might be travelling up and down the country taking horses to the races. A yard manager, a racing yard manager, is very different to being a general yard manager. Apprentice jockeys, racing secretaries, grounds people, assistant trainers, and I'm going through the list there. And in the general industry, I can think of ex-students that we've had that are in all of those aspects, all have entered the industry in all of those different areas, from jockeys to head racing yard managers, secretaries, and also in the general industry. So it's really good, and some of those pictures actually have ex-students in them, so there's a huge variety of job opportunities in the horse industry. With our teaching, some of the subjects are mostly classroom based, others are mostly based on the yard and outside, and generally speaking, as I said earlier, the FE courses tend to have practical as the kind of main driver, with theory subjects would be a kind of add-on. So you still need to know a bit of the theory, but it's mostly practical. And on the higher level courses, they also include practical elements, but they are theory based. All of our courses follow a blended learning approach, which means a bit of online and a bit of face-to-face. The FE courses tend to have more face-to-face because the degree students are expected to be a bit more independent in their learning and to develop those skills so that they can progress through their academic careers, whether that stops at degree level or they carry on to do an MSc or a PhD afterwards. All the courses, regardless of what level of qualification you're studying for, will include a bit of theory. That could be in class or online, and it might be live lectures online or recorded, and also some research time. They will all include some non-riding element, so in the yard or in the field. There will be riding practicals, including flat work, jumping, lunging and hacking, and they will all include visits of some sort. So that could be day trips or study tours, which I'll chat a bit about in the following slides. So these are just some photographs from our theory classes. We don't have sandwiches in all our theory classes. That was one where for some reason there tended to be a selection of refreshments available. On the right there, you've got somebody actually came in to do a talk on the digestive system. So that's a pretend small intestine being held up around the classroom. And then we have at the bottom, we have somebody using our IT facilities, and Moodle. The M there is our main platform for our online learning and materials. So there's very little in terms of what is covered in your learning that won't be included on Moodle. A non-riding practical might include sticking labels on a horse, so that's what we call a practical. And this was actually a group of foreign students that came, and we have an HND student at the back there with the bobble hat on. She was delivering a practical, practicing her teaching skills, teaching a group of young people who hadn't done much horse work before. So that was points of the horse they were covering there. This is actually a group of one of my HND student group who are doing a practical on managing equine grassland, so managing fields for equine, and that's an example of a non-riding practical as well. And then this is another non-riding practical where students are assessing a horse that they don't know. They are looking at his conformation and his movement and taking notes, and you'll see the lecturer there on the right hand side taking a photograph so that we can go back to class and discuss what we've seen in the practical. And then the riding practicals might include jumping, they might include lunging. So it's a picture of a student lunging for a project horse that they're lunging. They lunge it on several different occasions and try to log the improvements. And then at the bottom, a closed order group lesson riding on the flat. For our riding practicals, we have a weight limit of 14 stone, and that's in the interest of horse welfare. We have a variety of horses from cobs to thoroughbreds and from quiet horses to more forward-going ones. If you are less confident, you would start on quieter horses and then hopefully be able to progress to horses that are a little bit more lively or a little bit more challenging. And we usually have group lessons with around 6 other riders, but there might be the opportunity to ride with less for a slightly shorter time, or there might be occasions where there were slightly more. And we have our fantastic facilities at SNEC, the international arena, the warm-up arena, hacking routes, which we have developed more. And I would say actually in terms of hacking on or riding on the gallops, it would tend to be now that there is more hacking in the fields and the ability to get horses out of the arena situation, which is also really useful for the horses, but also really useful for students. As part of the course, particularly at the higher level of courses, there tend to be visits to different types of equestrian businesses as each unit ties closer to the subjects being covered. So the visits could be a huge variety of visits. The one on the left there is to a grassland, it's for the grassland unit, and it's a haylage production factory. The visit photograph on the right was to Musselburgh Races. So there was a talk for equine business on marketing and customer care, and then the students, that's a trainer with her back to us in the picture that was chatting to the students in the paddock at Musselburgh Races. The picture at the top right there, top left was for breeding. So that was to a stud with competition horses, and it was also a breeding visit. On the bottom right there was to a Highland pony stud. So the students were able to see a variety of different mares and their foals at foot in 2 very different environments. And then this was a visit to a show jumping yard at the top right, top left, that's the wrong side, and then to a dealer's yard at the bottom right of the screen. So really good range of visits, and educational, fun, and very much linked to the units that the students are learning about at the time. So visits would tend to be for a day or an afternoon, and we might include maybe 2 visits in one day, and a visit in the morning and a visit in the afternoon. The study tours would be where you would stay away. So the study tours that we've taken students on include Scotland, England, Ireland, France and Holland. They are not a given. It very much depends on a year-to-year basis whether students want to go on study tour and whether the students have the funds to be able to go on a study tour. But it would basically mean that instead of one day of visits or one morning of visits, there would be days of visits, one after the other, with an overnight stay. And I have to say, probably the best study tour that I've ever taken students on was to England. And you might think it would be, you know, it would be abroad, but actually this is the best one probably that I've ever been on with the most visits, because you spend less time travelling, would be to the one in England. So the study tours are also linked to the subjects that are taught on the courses, and the photographs here are a visit to a racing yard. That was actually a trip to the Scottish Borders, where we chatted about fitness in the stable, went to walk to the gallops and looked at horses working on the gallops, and then came back. And an important part of every visit would be having tea and scones in the kitchen afterwards. This is part of the same trip. So this was to Flores Castle. The pictures on the top, Flores Castle stud on the left. That was actually a student being offered the opportunity to put a poultice on a yearling. That's a thoroughbred yearling at Flores Stud. And then Flores Castle Event Yard on the top right, we got a talk from the international groom there. And at the bottom, that was a pre-training yard near Melrose. So students looking at horses. And usually these study tours take place in the summer months. So it's something to look forward to at the end. And then this is a Dutch study tour with students on balance things in the classroom before they got a chance to ride the mechanical horse, and then to the home of the Dutch Warmblood, the KWPN breeding headquarters as well. And then they also rode horses, rode the mechanical horse at the bottom. I'll chat to you a bit more about that later, and a chat on the yard from the yard manager. So moving on then to duties, which are a compulsory part of all of our courses. So the study tours are optional and don't necessarily happen every year depending on circumstances, but the duties are a compulsory part of the course. They're on a rota basis dependent on horse and student numbers, and they take place from 6:50 to 8:30 in the morning, Monday to Thursday, and then 6:50 AM until 4 o'clock on a Friday. We don't any longer have weekend duties, and that was due to pressures of students having to work at weekends to fund themselves on courses. So we have taken account of student feedback, and we have minimised the duties requirement, but it is a compulsory part of the course, and you would be required to attend those in order to pass your course. The aim is to prepare you for the industry, and it is different working on the yard than just looking after your own horse. So it's not enough to say I've got my own horse at home, why do I need to look after college horses? It's to prepare you for the industry, encourages teamwork, and is required in order to pass. For clothing, you would be required to wear an SRUC or plain dark coloured sweatshirt. Your tutor would advise you on which colour would be appropriate in advance. You're not able to wear hooded tops from a safety point of view. You would have a plain white or dark coloured polo shirt, dark or beige coloured breeches, and long leather or synthetic boots, or short boots and gaiters. We don't allow you to wear suede chaps, and that's not from a what it looks like point of view or anything like that. It's to prevent disease transfer from one horse to another, because we have had instances in the past where suede gaiters can't be cleaned, and the disease skin issues have been transferred from horse to horse. You need to have a PS015 skull cap with a plain dark coloured cover for the racehorse care, but for all of the other riding courses it's a correct standard hard hat. You would be able to get information on that on the British Horse Society website, or we can send you information for that if you request it. And a Beta Level 3 2018 body protector. Gloves, a short and a long whip, and you are not able to wear jewellery for riding or have any uncovered piercings. So if you had any facial piercings, for example, you would be required to cover those up with plasters if you are riding. So work experience for 2 weeks is required in advance of the course, but on the courses themselves, the National Certificate and the Advanced Certificate have a 2-week workplace place opportunity, and again, it's part of the course. It's a requirement in order to pass, and it's anywhere in Scotland for block 2 or 3. It's in block 2 or 3 for 2 weeks. The advanced certificate students are currently out on placement just now, so everyone on that course is currently on placement in the industry somewhere for 2 weeks as we speak. The HNC and BSc also have a 2-week block where they are on placement, and that can be anywhere in the world, but just to clarify that that is paid for by the students themselves. So by all accounts, by all means, sorry, you can go to Australia, but it is covered yourself in terms of travel costs. But it's an opportunity that you wouldn't get at any other point to sample where you might like to work. And some people come back and end up with full-time jobs from that. Other people come back and they say that's not an area that's identified where they don't want to work, but it then allows them to narrow down the areas that they might want to work once they complete their course. Vocational qualifications include the British Horse Society exams that I mentioned earlier. So students get the opportunity to take part in training and assessment towards qualifications over and above their full-time course. So first aid being an example, which is a very good addition to your CV, safeguarding and protecting children, SVQs and modern apprenticeships, which are slightly aside to our full-time courses. So you would be out in the industry. We have had students who have not necessarily settled on full-time courses who have then gone out to work in a yard situation and done their qualification alongside working. If that's an area that you are interested in, then you can put a note in the chat and I can give you the contact for that if that's something that you would like to explore before you apply for a full-time course. And British Horse Society exams are funded for the students by the college to students who have shown both good attendance and a positive attitude to their work and have are doing well and keeping up with their coursework. So on Friday the 8th of March we have an internal stage 2, so some of our students are doing the stage 2. They maybe have done their stage 1 last year, or they maybe have done it before they started on their course. And we are hopeful that we'll be able to progress to offering the BHS Stage 3 at least care and lunge exams at some point in the future, because we now have quite a good cohort of students that we know have done their Stage 2 and are ready to progress. And that is a fantastic opportunity where the only thing you need to apply for is your BHS subscription. You need to have paid to be a BHS member, but you are then funded through your BHS exams by the college, which is a really, really good opportunity, and it saves quite a lot of money. We've had students before that have won at the ALBAS Awards. So these are awards for land base and agriculture. So I think it's agriculture, land base and agriculture. Lucy Phillips won an HE award. She completed her HND in 2020 and was awarded an award in 2021. Kimberly Gallagher was awarded Equine Learner of the Year. She completed her NC in 2020, then progressed to her HNC in 21 and her HND in 2022. And then last year we had 2 more award winners. Lara Fell was an Equine Learner of the Year. She did her NC in racing. She completed that in 2022 and then started a career in the industry. And Victoria McGeechan was Equine Learner of the Year runner-up in 2023. She completed her advanced certificate in 2022. She then did her HNC in 2023 and is currently on the HND in 2024. For anyone who would like to live on campus, we have 2 options. We have catered accommodation, which is for 16 to 18-year-olds, own room with a sink, shared bathroom and kitchenette with a microwave, toaster, breakfast and evening meal being provided. So there is no full kind of kitchen offer. And then we have self-catering, where you have basically a room in a flat, a shared kitchen and living room with full cooking facilities, your own ensuite bathroom, and you need to be 18 years and over for that. You can't live in the college accommodation during holiday periods, so we don't have somebody moving in at the start of their HNC and living here until the end of their degree. You can't live here in holidays. You do need to move out, but you can stay at weekends, and you can book short accommodation for when it's required for being on duties, for example, if you live further afield but you do live off campus, and there's further information available from the accommodation officer. Just a couple of other points to note. The holidays are 1 week in October, 2 weeks at Christmas and 2 weeks at Easter, and that's the same for all courses. If you are looking at funding options, the bursary funding is available for National Certificate and Advanced Certificate. That means money that you don't pay back. And Student Awards Agency funding is available for HNC, HND and BSc courses, and that is a student loan that you do pay back once you're in a level of employment that offers you earn over a certain amount, you would pay that back at the end of your course. And more information is available from funding staff from that point of view. And the learning support, we have an excellent in-house learning support service, which students are encouraged to use for any learning needs that they have, specific learning needs that they have, and that would be identified in a personal support plan at the start of the course, or you can report that yourself to the learning support department. And last but not least, and I'm hoping that the link works here, we this year launched our new eventing simulator called RoboCob, who was named by the students. So the photograph here shows one of the HND students. I think this was probably one of the first times it was used, but it's a mechanical horse that does everything from dressage through to cross country at a low level or a very high level. So it does flying changes dressage wise, piaffe and passage dressage wise, and it also gives you the opportunity to ride cross country. So the screens in front of the student there, in front of the horse, you're jumping, but you're not jumping a real horse, so there's much less less variables, and you kind of know what you're getting, but it's a really good opportunity, and the students are using it all the time. They're not, instead of riding real horses, but they are riding RoboCob. And what I'm going to do, if I can click on the link here, hopefully it will work and you'll be able to see him in action.
Gillian, I'm not sure that the RoboCop video is working. It's the screen's there, but there's no actual movement on this on the screen. So maybe we can just just leave that and move on. But actually this might be a good point just to mention, because I was going to ask you further down the line if you might want to expand a little on things like RoboCob, but also some of the high-tech equipment that you guys use in the arena with the students. The video cameras work with, and the pressure sensors and rain sensors and all those kinds of things. Might be useful to expand a little on those.
Okay, so apologies for that. I was watching at my end, it was working fine, so I thought it was working at your end too, but that brings us to the end of the presentation. So I think we move on now to a video tour of the campus.
Yeah, I'll if you give us a second or two just to load that up. Can I just remind everyone, please, to get any, we've got some questions in the chat already, but it would be good to have any more that you can think of while we're loading up. Please just get the questions in, and we can review those after the short video that's just coming up. So, can you see that all right, Gillian?
I can see it, but it's not moving just yet.
No, that's all right. It's okay. I'm just going to set it live. There we go.
That's fine. Okay, so this is a drone footage of our campus. On the right-hand side of the screen there, we have the international arena and the warm-up arena, and then just beyond that, we have the stable building, so they are very close to each other. We have the gallops just in the middle there, the circle in the middle, where we tend not to use it for gallops particularly anymore, but we do tend to use it for summer shows and bigger shows who need outside facilities. This is moving down onto the main campus. So the zigzag buildings are the self-catered accommodation that I mentioned earlier for 18 years and over. And then we have our strip grazing for horses there that just spun round in the picture. The campus is a lovely place to work, so it's quite rural, but there is a bus comes to the campus. Students who live in Edinburgh, in Linlithgow and in Livingston are brought on a minibus to the campus. So that shows you the big arena, the smaller arena, and then the stable building. We have a small, the walker there and a small turnout paddock at the back of the stables. And again, coming down to the accommodation. So there's not far to walk. The path literally takes you from the car park at the flats through into the stable building. The car park there is where lorries park for shows, and the students, when they're taking horses across from the stables, just walk up the path at the side of the car park and into the arenas. So the fields around the gallops we also use for turning out horses, and again, not too far to walk. This is into the stable yard now. So we have two sides of the stable yard that are pretty symmetrical. On the right hand side, the staff offices. Next to that, there's a small kitchen, and next to that's the workshop. And then each of the stables has a number which corresponds with the tack room. The tack in the tack room corresponds to that stable number. All of the stables are 12 by 12 boxes with sliding doors and a water drinker, rubber mats on the floor, and this would be before the, I think the beds will have been cleaned out here, and it's not yet been painted. It's been power hosed but not painted, and that gets done every summer once the horses can be out more of the time before the next lot of horses and students arrive in September. So each stable has a plaque on the front with information about the horse, so its name and anything else that it's important for you to know. A rug rack, a saddle rack on the door, so that when you bring the tack out, you can put it there, and tacking up just takes place before the lesson, but it also might be a practical that you're doing on tacking up. So the video is now going into the tack room, and the tack in the middle here is just a tack that's obviously been used or is about to be used. Each saddle and bridle sit above a locker that is numbered with the stable number on it. So Penny lives in stable number 6 in this. Here she might not necessarily always live there, but when she moves, her tack would move too. And in the box underneath the saddle and bridle, there are brushes, brushing boots, anything that the horse particularly needs, and that's all listed there on the notes on the top of the board, because obviously you'd be riding a lot of different types of horses. It's not like riding your own horse where you know what the horse wears and it's the same every day. You'd be riding different horses with different tack to give you the opportunity to use different types of tack and to get used to working with different horses. So the grooming kits we try to keep for one horse, so that you're not taking any issues that the horse has, skin issues or anything like that, taking it from horse to horse. This is us moving now into the wash bay. So we have a hot wash shower, solarium, and the solariums double up as stocks for any examinations or scans or anything that's taken place with the horse. So the stocks there on the left of the screen have the solarium above, so horses may be washed and then put under the solarium to dry. The blue tub there is a hay soaking tub, and yeah, I would say that area is washed. Used quite. That wash bay is used quite a lot on a daily basis. So stables are all the same. They are all, as I said, 12 by 12. They all have a bed at the back, so this one still has a bed in it, and some of the horses will be bedded on straw so that you get the opportunity to work with straw and with shavings, so that when you go out into industry, you can't, you don't say I've never used that before. You can see I've had experience of both. These baskets there are for filled hay nets, so students would fill nets for the following day or for later in the day. If they're on the yard in the morning, they need nets for the afternoon. And then we have a plentiful supply of bedding, and most of the horses just now are on hay rather than haylage, but we would include haylage in the teaching, and there have been occasions in the past where some horses are on hay and some are on haylage. So once you've mucked out, you would come out the back to the muck heap, which is basically a trailer with a ramp up to it. We have plenty of equipment so that there's a lot of students all would be mucking out at the same time. So we have 20 something horses on the yard, give or take, depending on whether we're full. And you would have a variety of different students doing a few beds each, again, as preparation for the industry where you would be expected to muck out fairly quickly and efficiently and get the job done so that the yard can keep moving. That area there in front of us is the small turnout area where horses maybe that have been on box rest or are being used in the afternoon, but they haven't been out in the field in the morning. They would go out there for a bit of a leg stretch and for some sun on their backs in the summer months. And sometimes there's a hay bale in there for them to pick at while they're outside. You'll see the horse walker there as well. So a lot of yards do have a horse walker, and it's important that students have the opportunity to practice using the horse walker to put horses on and off, to switch it on, make sure horses are safe and settled on the walker, and they do. There would be somebody supervising them when they're on it. So this is us coming back in the other side of the yard, and that's where all the tools are kept, fire extinguishers, fire bell. And we'll then swing round to the practical area where students would meet in the morning, at the start of the morning and the start of the afternoon, to be allocated their horses, to leave their bags, and that's just on the other side of the wall there where the tools are. So this is the practical area. There's a whiteboard, there's a seating area, there's lockers, a notice board for any important communications, but that's where everyone would meet. So when you come out of your flats in the morning, if you've not been on duties, you would report for the yard be there just before 9 to be allocated your horse for riding or for lunging, and then you go and tack up, and you would know which horse you were riding. So you go and find the horse, see what number it is, and then find the tack in the tack room, although you would get familiar with that. So this is on the right hand side there, the tack room on the other side. So we saw the tack room on one side, there's a tack room on both sides of the yard. Some of you may have visited the yard in the past for an open day tour. The metal thing there is our mobile weigh bridge. So the horses are weighed to monitor their weight. And the door on the right there is the feed room. And then we're back along the top corridor back towards the office where we started, and the door on the right there is into the rug store. We also have spare tack, clippers, spare bits, bandages, anything that we might need for practicals is stored in there, and everything is organised so that each horse has its own peg for its rug. Some of our horses are loan horses, some of our horses belong to us, and it's important that all their equipment is looked after and kept well organised. Shoeing tools, spare bit box, double bridles. You have a good variety of bits and bobs in the storage area here. So it's mainly as a rug store with everything else that we might need in there too. So this is just looking out the stables and across. So if you were leading your horse across the ride, you go out through that gate, turn to the right, and then down to the entrance to the arena. And then we're just doing a full circle round. This is us standing just outside the back of the warm-up arena, looking round over the gallops and over the fields. Unfortunately, the fields and the campus don't look quite as green as this because we are in February and it's obviously been quite a wet winter, but that's what they'll look like again very soon once things start to dry up a bit. So we're into the main arena here, which is a lovely place to teach. It's very good with natural light. It's plenty of space. It's 88 by 40. We do run a variety of affiliated and unaffiliated competitions. We have our new British eventing horse trials coming back again this year after a long break. So quite excited about that. And the show jumping will take place indoors on a surface. This is our warm-up arena, also really light. The warm-up arena is 60 metres by 25 metres, so that would be big enough for our affiliated dressage, for example, to have an arena in there. So it mainly focuses on kind of being used as a warm-up, but it's also an area where we would have competitions. Then this is a student lesson. These jumps are not the jumps that the students would be using in their lesson. These have probably been up from one of our competitions, either at a weekend or on a Wednesday evening, where we have unaffiliated show jumping from a low level up to 110 or 1.15 meters. So this is one of our old favourites, Billy, and the smaller one at the back there is Brana. So we have a variety of different horses. So Billy obviously is bigger and what you call him, a kind of bigger, more rangy horse, more forward going, a little bit more thoroughbred. And we have Brana, who has much more native type blood, so she would be more of a cob type. So these are the jumps put down now for our students to ride. We do have students at a variety of levels, so we have some who have competed at high level before they come onto the course. We have other students who are really quite nervous riders and don't particularly have a lot of experience. So there's a huge range of riders on the courses, and that's to be expected, and we work around that with the variety of horses that we have. So this is one of the horses coming down to say hello. The horses are in groups, in fields, in a strip grazing system, and they at the moment are living out for a lot of the time, so they don't have to stand in. That brings with its own set of advantages and disadvantages. The horses do get to be out and about more, moving around, socialising, and we are very conscious of what is good for a horse in terms of the welfare benefits of having horses living out. So they do spend a lot of time at grass. Sadly, the horse on the left here is no longer with us, but she was a horse that was an older horse that was with us for a long time. She came to us because she wasn't any good as a brood mare anymore, because she didn't like needles. She was a recipient mare for embryo transfer. She couldn't be used for that job anymore, but she was a fantastic horse for us to use in a school environment. And she got, she was an older horse and was with us, but she had 2 very useful lives, and we're pleased to have had her with us for a long time. So that's the end of the presentation now. So I think we now move on to questions and answers, which I believe there are some in the chat.
Absolutely, Gillian. Thank you very much for your presentation. As ever, very comprehensive and informative, and I hope everybody enjoyed that. Yes, we do have a bunch of questions, so I'll go to those in a moment. If I might, however, I have a question, being a non-horsey person, and maybe everybody will know the answer to this, but what's the difference between hay and haylage?
So hay is dried moor and haylage is baled and wrapped in plastic before it is stored, and that basically means that the juices in the grass, and because there's more moisture in there, it in very primitive terms, it pickles itself. And it then is better for a horse from a respiratory point of view. For horses who have any dust allergies, it can be better for them. It doesn't work for every horse, but it's important, obviously, that students are familiar with being able to use both.
Super. Good. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. So let's start with some of the questions. Some of them, the very start, we've kind of already dealt with, but here's one about the 2 weeks work experience in terms of entry to the course. Is it 2 consecutive weeks? My daughter volunteers at a Riding Disability Association facility once a week and has done for some time. Would that be suitable?
Absolutely, yes. So it's the equivalent of 2 weeks, and if you have helped somewhere on an ongoing basis, albeit that it might just be 2 or 3 hours at a time, as long as you have an employer who is willing to vouch for the fact that equates in hours to the equivalent of 2 full-time weeks. So if we said 5 days a week for 8 hours a day, that might be about 80 hours. So as long as you had an employer that was willing to vouch for that being the equivalent, then absolutely, yes, that's really useful work experience.
Super, thank you. And can you bring your own horse to stay at the stables on campus?
Very good question. At the moment, we are looking. It's not an area that we deal with on the academic side, but SNEC, I know, are looking at reintroducing student livery. So I will make a wee note to add that to any future slides, because it is something that we do get asked. And previous years, I would have had to say no. but I am able to say this year that there is a strong likelihood that you would be able to bring your own horse. However, it would be a requirement that you did the work for that horse, you exercise the horse out with college time. So it's not in your timetabled classes. It wouldn't be used in lessons, but there would be a window of time where you would have the opportunity to use the arenas to exercise. What I can't say is a definite yes, but I can see there's a strong likelihood that you would be able to bring your own horse on DIY livery that would be kept alongside rather than as part of the college yard on a DIY basis.
Okay, thank you. Next one, which I think is from the same questioner. Is it possible to visit? I'll take that one on. The answer to that is yes. We run open days as often as we can. Oh, excuse me. Next open day we've got scheduled for equine will be the 31st of May in the afternoon. It's not on our website yet. We have an open day website where you can book on and register for these things. It will be on the website within the next 3-4 days. We've just been agreeing all the dates with the lecturing teams. So our open day website is just fairly straightforward, SRUC/open days. But I will put, as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to share a recording of today's event, and what I'll do is I'll put the links to these kind of things in that email that I send out. So the answer to that is yes. If you're not able to come to a formal open day where there'll be lots and lots of people, the on-campus open days are really great, and our equine team really go over the odds to try and make them as interesting and useful as possible for people. You will get a classroom presentation from the lecturers about the courses. You also then have the opportunity to take a walk up to the stables and the SNEC facility, and also, which is very important, to be able to mingle a little bit with some of the students, because the students are very friendly and very forthcoming, and people can ask the students, what is it really like? Because you would expect me to say it's great. It is, but if you're able to ask a student, they'll tell you for real, and they'll hopefully give you a very positive impression of the courses, the facilities, the campus itself, and obviously the lecturing team. So the answer to that is yes. In terms of open days, if you're not able to make a formal open day, we do try, or I do try as hard as I can, to facilitate one-to-one visits. I have this year done 3 or 4 for equine students where somebody's not been able to come to an open day, and we're very fortunate to be able to have the services of our stable yard manager. Emily Stewart is actually an ex-student, so she knows a lot of the courses because she's done it. She's got the t-shirt, and she's often helped me give a wee mini tour of the stables and the SNEC facility where the lecturing staff might have been teaching or whatever. So we do as much as we can to accommodate visits. So I hope that answers your question. Next one I have here is, do you only work with or ride one horse for each person, or do you work with all of them?
So every student is given the opportunity to ride a variety of horses. Obviously, if, for example, you were a slightly more nervous rider and you wanted to ride maybe less forward going or quieter horses, then it might be that you ride a small pool of horses to start with, but every student rides a variety of horses throughout their course. So it wouldn't be a case that you get one horse allocated to you and you stick with that horse. It's definitely a variety is encouraged, because obviously in an employment situation you would need to ride a variety of different horses if you went into a role where you were riding.
Thank you, Gillian. Next one is, might you be able to elaborate a bit more on the transferable skills? What is the job market after graduation, and are many students finding a job in their area of study?
Well, transferable skills, I would say being able to have the confidence to chat with people, being able to, so we, for example, we would, students might do presentations as part of class that they then might have to do in a different job that was nothing to do with horses. Being reliable, being conscientious. All of those things are developed. Our core skills include basic maths and English, which obviously there is a requirement for. In most jobs, you would have to have some ability to be able to communicate, either written or verbally, and also to add and subtract. So that's a kind of basic given that would be transferable to any job. But if you were in on your course, you were asked to teach, you might not necessarily go into teaching with horses, but you would then be able to take that into a different environment where you were supervising young people in a different environment. So that's what I mean by transferable skills, are things that you can take from one job into another. And in this instance, it may be that the skills that you learn on your course, albeit that they're not technical horse things, you can take forward into your job, and that job might be in the equine industry, or it might be in something completely different. So, for example, I did my first degree is not in horses, but a lot of the things that I learned on my degree, I've been able to then use in my role as an educator, so as in my lecturing job. So I didn't do horses to start with, but I then moved into a job where I was doing horses for teaching people for a living. And in terms of students going on to employment, there's a huge variety, and I would say that now where students would leave, historically would have left at the end of HND and gone and got a job, a lot of our students are now staying on to our degree, are really keen to progress on to the degree. I have a big group of HNDs this year, and a lot of those students will now progress on to the degree course to the year 3 of the degree. But the jobs that they would get from that would be either because they've left their HND, or they've left their year 3 or year 4 of degree, or they have gone into they've gone into education somewhere else first, and then they've moved into a job after that. So some of them are on yards, some of them are in retail, some of them are in racing, some of them are coaching, some of them have set up their own business. We do get students occasionally to come back and chat to the current students about what they're doing now, what their career journey has been, and some of the visits that we've gone on to as part of the course are to ex-students who are now out running their own yard. So, for example, one of the yards we've gone to with the HND for one of their big case studies is to a student who was a student a while ago and is now, she built her own yard from scratch and has set it up. And she maybe not at the time would have realised the importance of what she was learning on the course, but she said certainly now, looking back, there are plenty of things that she learned on the course that she didn't realise at the time were important, that she's then been able to put into practice. So yeah, there's a huge variety, and it would be difficult for me to go through. We have a lot of students leaving, a lot of students in different places, but hopefully that gives you an idea of what kind of things they might go on to afterwards.
Yep, lovely, thank you, Gillian. A couple application related. One is what is the deadline for applications?
So the UCAS deadline is in January. We do have students that will then go through clearing if our spaces, so the UCAS is for the HE courses, who will then go through clearing. So they maybe didn't get grades in another subject that they wanted, or we might have spaces on our courses. So the end of if you were still at school now and you were applying to come onto our courses in August 2025, then January 2025 would be the UCAS deadline. But our FE courses, so that's the NC and the advanced certificate, you can apply for them any time up until the course starts. But I would say that the courses do fill, and to get the best chance of having a place on the course, the sooner you can get your application in, the better. And if you can apply just now, but you don't necessarily have your workplace reference, or you don't have your video of your riding, then your application would be better to be in, and then we request that additional information rather than wait until time starts to tick on and you don't have your information and you kind of hold off applying. So if you are considering applying for August 2024 and you know that you want to come on the course, then you would put your application in with or without the workplace reference, with or without the riding video, and we would then assess your application, ask for your additional evidence, or you can submit it when it comes, and we're then in a much better position to be able to say you've got a conditional place based on your academic results at the end of the academic year, or an unconditional place if you have already fulfilled the academic requirements. it would be conditional only on us receiving your workplace and your riding reference.
Lovely. That's great, Gillian, because it also answers Frankie's question, which was about when do I need to provide the riding evidence and work experience details. So you've nailed both questions there. Thank you.
Some of our students, the evidence might be them riding at a competition. It doesn't have to be evidence that's specifically made for this job, for the application. It could be riding at a unaffiliated show jumping competition or riding in a previous lesson, just video footage that you can put together. It only needs to be 5 minutes or so. We don't need you to provide us with lots. We can tell quite a lot by able to see you walk, trot, canter, jump a small fence, depending on the level of course, maybe more than one small fence, but you were quite flexible with what you provide for your riding evidence.
Okay, a question on duties from Alison. She says, I work most weekends. Is there a way that I can work around this to get the duties done?
So duties is no longer a weekend requirement. So we only need to do duties Monday to Friday. Monday to Thursday is before class starts, and on a Friday it's during the day. So you don't need to, and that's exactly the reason why we made changes to the duties requirement, is because you don't necessarily we appreciate you don't sit around necessarily at the weekend with nothing to do in between duties weeks, and that some people do have to work. So that probably helps you quite a lot.
Yeah, that's good. And this question is kind of linked to that. 3.5 days per week for FE, is that always the same days each week? And I assume you wouldn't have duties on a day you were not due to be there.
So if your class was 3.5 days, so you were in Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, if it was a duties week, you would be on in those mornings and then be in class in the afternoon. And you would also be in class, on duties on a Friday. So that's not a class week. If that wasn't a class week and that was a duties day, you would still be on duties that day. If you were on a non-duties week, you would just attend class and you would be off if your classes were Monday to Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So the timetable is the same every week for an on-campus week, but it might be slightly different for an off-campus week. But in your off-campus week, every off-campus week would be the same. So every on-campus week, so I'll give you an example of the HND just now. Their on-campus weeks are Monday to Thursday, and their off-campus weeks are Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. So we go 2 weeks on campus, 2 weeks off campus, but they always know 10 weeks in advance what they're going to be doing. Lost your sound, Graham.
Yes, we have. I muted my mic to have a cough. Excuse me. I had a bit of a coughing fit. Yeah. So is a place guaranteed? You kind of answered this in one of just a couple of previous questions, but you could maybe just reiterate for this one. Is a place guaranteed if all conditions are met, or are most courses oversubscribed?
Our courses are not at this time oversubscribed. And what we do find is that sometimes we'll have, so say for example, in the low level courses, we had 40 applications, albeit that they might be applications that are unconditional and people have accepted. People don't always turn up on the day. So whatever number of students we get on the day isn't necessarily what we think we're going to get on paper. So even if a place was not necessarily available and not guaranteed at the time, a place could become available at short notice. But it's unlikely that at this time of year our places would be oversubscribed. But if you were waiting until August to apply for a September start, then there is a chance that the places could be filling up. So if just now I've been assessing quite a lot of applications, all the academic qualifications have been met, and the riding is up to the required level, the workplace experience has been submitted and accepted, then you would be offered a place, and almost guaranteed at this point in the year you would almost be guaranteed a place if you've ticked all those boxes.
Lovely. Okay, well, thank you very much for that, Gillian. I'll give it a minute or two just to see if we have any more questions coming in, which I don't think we have. So let me pop myself back on screen and yeah, I think we're done with our questions. So just remains for me to thank Gillian for your presentation. It's always been very comprehensive and informative. I hope everyone found it useful. Thank you everyone for your attendance today. Remember, I will send out, hopefully this afternoon, an email with a link to a YouTube recording of the event, and if that generates any further questions, please do send them in. I'll include details on accommodation and student support, and also a wee short survey that we'd ask you to complete, to take a couple of minutes to do that for us. If you are able to come and see us on Campus Open Day, I'd very much recommend that. Next one, as I mentioned, is the 31st of May. Typically it's going to be, I think, 1 o'clock till about 4, but you do get a very immersive experience from our equine lecturers, and the facilities are really great. I'm sure you'll love coming to visit us. So thank you very much for your attendance again. Have a good day. Please stay safe, and we hope to see you soon on campus, or better yet, as a new student at Oatridge. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.